All right. Welcome to the Life of Joey Cavo podcast. I am Joey Cavo. Today I have a truly beautiful cosplayer, dancer, choreographer. Should be Wonder Woman, but she's in the Marvel. Okay. All right. There are some Marvel ones that kind of I'm okay with, but um, but I have the very talented and beautiful Alicia Wilder with us today. And Alicia, tell us how you got started.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, Joey, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's
Mhm.
really an honor to be here, and I'm excited to share my story. So thanks for the opportunity.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so growing up, I was always a huge fan of Halloween. I had to make my Halloween costume every year. I didn't like just getting a store-bought costume. Super into Halloween. And then as I got older, once I graduated college, I started working for this company called 1031 Productions, which is a living art company based in Rhode Island, where I'm from.
Mhm.
And I learned a little bit more about costume making through them. So, working with that company, we get to do all sorts of things. We get to wear many hats, right? So, we work in the office, but we're also in the creative side of things and designing things. So, I got to sort of explore the ideas of making costumes as an adult. And even as an adult, I was
Guys
still
already.
into Halloween.
Okay.
Um,
Alicia, I just gotta stop you first. I just gotta stop you for a second. It the Wi we have T-Mobile Wi-Fi here, the home internet Wi-Fi, and the live stream sucks. So it cut you out as you were talking. So if it cuts you, it somehow we get cut out. I'm apologizing now for the rest of the show.
okay, totally cool. Just
Yes, continue on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So, even as an adult, I continued to make my own costumes and I started doing costume making where I would go to my like old dance costumes or thrift stores or things I had in my closet and kind of just started out altering things I already had to make
Mhm.
costumes with them. And
Mhm.
then a little bit before COVID, when my husband and I got married in 2018, we had really started going more to conventions and things like that, which I hadn't done much of before that point.
Mhm.
And so once we started going to conventions around like 2017, 2016, I started getting into more of like the actual cosplay realm of
Mhm.
things and making costumes for that. My first like real cosplay was post-apocalyptic summer from Rick and Morty. So I had used an old dance costume. I had a seamstress friend who helped me make a skirt. I had made my foam armor
Mhm.
and was really just starting to learn the ins and outs of cosplay. And then when COVID hit in 2020, I had plans to start a podcast with a friend of mine. And those plans kind of fell through, and I was pretty bummed about it. And then my husband was like, hey, what if we do a podcast about X-Men comics? And in that podcast, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to read comics. I'll just explain the comics to you, and it can be your genuine in the moment reactions to those
Mhm.
comics. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that sounds easy. That sounds fun. Let's do it. So we started doing it, and I was really in depthly introduced to the X-Men. Now, I was always a movie nerd, so I knew about the X-Men through the movies, but I didn't know so much about them through comics.
Mhm.
And once I started really reading the comics, because I got too invested to just have them explained to me. So I had to go and read them too. Once I
Mhm.
started reading them, I really became drawn to some specific characters. Kate slash Kitty Pryde, whatever you want to call her. That's who I am
Mhm.
today.
Okay.
One of my favorites. Emma Frost is another favorite of mine. Magic. So I was like, well, I need to become the characters that I know and love. So I really started digging into cosplay in that way and still started out very similarly, altering clothes that I already had,
Mhm.
purchasing things and making tweaks to them, and then eventually started sort of self teaching myself how to sew, how to make foam armor, and
Mhm.
now I have this entire room that I'm in is dedicated to my cosplay. I have a giant cosplay closet, numerous amounts of bins with costumes, so many shoes, And I just can't stop myself.
Yeah. Okay. Now, not only do you do the cosplay, but you're also a dancer and choreographer.
Hmm.
So, what led into that?
Yeah. So growing up, I danced recreationally. It was sort of the outlet that my mom was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I want to take dance class." So I took dance,
Mhm.
starting, at the age of 2, all the way through my entire life. And I was also really into theater, musical theater. I worked with the musical theater program in my middle school and my high school,
Mhm.
and knew that that's sort of the direction I wanted to go for school. So when I went to college, I started out actually as a technical theater major,
Okay.
um, pursuing like lighting design and things like that. And I had no idea that the college that I went to had a dance program. I didn't know at
Mhm.
all. And my college roommate said, "Hey, do you want to audition for the dance company with me?" And I was like, "There's a dance company? Okay, yes." So I auditioned for the dance company and I was accepted. And within like 2 months, I switched my major to be a dance major. And so
Mhm.
I graduated school with a dance major and a theater minor and a film minor. So I
Okay.
still continued to study those other things that were of interest to me.
Of course.
And then when I was always into choreography. Growing up, my work on the musicals in high school and things like that, I was the choreographer. I wasn't ever in them. I always just choreographed them.
Mhm.
I got this really great opportunity right after graduating high school where Disney did this thing where they selected 10 schools in the United States
Mhm.
to get money to put on a production of High School Musical.
Mhm.
And my former high school was one of those schools. And so
Yeah.
my former director invited me back to choreograph it. So I got to choreograph High School Musical and be interviewed for like Disney 365 and like just out of
That's
high school, got to have that as like a little notch on my resume.
yeah.
I've always loved choreographing, always loved dancing. I used to make my cousins um, do like full scale productions with me and
Uh-huh.
like wear all of my dance costumes. And like every holiday, I'd be like, "We're going to do a show." And then we'd like put a show together in the basement and show
Yeah.
our family.
Yeah.
So then when I graduated college in 2010, I
Mhm.
started working with 1031, which is the living art company that I mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
And when I was working with them, the conversation came up, well, what else can you add to the company? What next steps can we take? And I said, well, what if we started to infuse dance into this? And so this year is actually Metamorphosis, which is my dance company as a
Yeah.
part of 1031. It's our 10-year anniversary.
Congrats.
That's Thank you. It's really exciting. So I got into dancing and choreographing that way and became the director of the dance company. And I teach children, I teach adults. And I'm just very, very lucky that I get to use my creative outlets as my profession because, you know,
Mhm.
baby Alicia dreamed of being a famous star one day. And now I get to cosplay and go to cool nerd events and dance for a living and perform at
Mhm.
all these really exciting events. So, and it's
Yeah.
not necessarily exactly what I dreamed of as a kid, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's good. Um, and you mentioned that you did cosplay for X-Men,
Hmm.
but you forgot the main. I could say almost the main, well, two main female characters of X-Men. One kind of would be borderline. The other one, Jean Grey.
Okay, here's the thing. I am not a Jean Grey fan. I mean,
Ah,
Jean is great, but I am actually a Madeline Pryor fan.
okay.
So I'm a big fan of the Goblin Queen. I've got actually on my mannequin behind me right now the
Yeah.
beginnings of a Goblin Queen costume.
Okay.
So yeah, I love Jean, but I have some friends who are amazing Jean Grey cosplayers, and
Yeah.
since she's not, you know, I think the thing about cosplay is the characters that you want to cosplay are the characters that you already sort of see yourself in or aspire to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jean's great. No shade to Jean.
Yeah.
She's not my favorite.
Okay.
So leave
Okay.
her to the others.
Okay. All right. Of course, Storm, but that was borderline because in the movie that was Halle Berry that played
Right.
her.
Right.
And and I'm not trying to be, racist, but that's always been an African American character.
Of course, yeah.
A majority of the time.
Storm is amazing, though. We love Storm, but
Yeah.
I don't touch her specifically for that reason. There are
Yeah, no, I know. That I understood. Yeah, that I understood. And then I started thinking about, matter of fact, I'm thinking of Olivia Munn.
Mm-hmm.
Psylocke.
Yes.
Have you thought about doing even the villain side of it?
So I haven't thought about doing a Psylocke, but so currently in the comics, like I don't know how much you know about Psylocke, but I'll give you a little. Psylocke is actually at some point sort of a combination of two characters.
Okay.
It is Betsy Braddock's mind inside a woman named Quanan's body, and they've been separated now in the comics currently. So Betsy is one character and Conan is another character. And I think if I had to choose between the two of them, I'd probably be more inclined to cosplay Betsy versus so Conan is now still Psylocke and Betsy is currently Captain Britain.
Okay.
And I think that's another like Kanan is generally an Asian woman, and I just feel like that's not really something that I should cosplay, so I kind of shy away from that one too.
Okay.
But I do think that she's a baddie, and I love her.
Yeah. Well, that's because I had liked Olivia Munn before she got with a certain comedian.
Mhm.
So that's why I asked that. And then there was another one. Matter of fact, and Rebecca, was it Rebecca Romaine that did it in the movie? I know
Oh,
Jennifer Lawrence did it
yeah,
in the
Mystique.
Mystique. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Mystique is another great one. I haven't dabbled in Mystique yet. That is a costume that does require, depending on how you do it, like some people will do it with like a bodysuit like this and then only kind of paint their face and their hands,
Yeah.
or wear like blue tights, but that's a big makeup undertaking.
Yeah.
I did, however, do recently, there's a character in current comics named Rasputin who is all silver. And there's a thing in the X-Men recently called the Hellfire Gala, which is essentially like the Met Gala for the X-Men. They have these like very lavish, extravagant costumes that are designed for them, or like formal attire, but like with an X-Men costume twist. And when I saw last spring's design for Rasputin, I was like, oh, I have to do this, even though this requires me to paint like my entire upper body silver and like wear silver leggings. I'm going to do it because I love a challenge and I just think she's stunning and she's she's so cool. So that was really fun, and I got to attend the first in-person real life Hellfire Gala at San Diego Comic-Con. It was a D23 event, and it was so fun. They set it up just like the comics, just like the Hellfire Gala in the comics. And a bunch of the writers and artists from the comics were also there and in attendance. And they were so excited about the fact that I was wearing this like costume that, maybe not many people would make. And I actually was thrilled because when I walked into the event, the name tag that the admission pass that they gave us had 3 different characters on it, and the character that I was actually on the badge. So I was like, look, it's me, I'm on a badge.
Excuse me. Well, that's good. All right, so we got through the X-Men. Actually, there is another one that I think that you're starting to play around with. And it's Rogue.
Oh, yeah. So I have the Age of Apocalypse Rogue is already currently in my roster. And that was really fun because that was one of the first group cosplays that I ever got to do. So I do a couple couples cosplays with my husband. We choose characters that we think complement each other, and we've done couple cosplays, and not
Right.
necessarily characters who are a couple, but just
Yeah.
characters who maybe are on the same team or something like that.
Right.
But
Right.
we got together with a couple of our other friends for New York Comic Con in 2022, and we did an Age of Apocalypse theme. So I was Rogue. My husband Justin was Magneto.
Oh.
And then our friend Dylan was Cyclops, and our friend Chandler was Gambit. And the four of us went together, and that was so fun because we got to,
A
goof
female
around.
Gambit. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe your husband would dress up as like um Jean Grey's favorite love.
Oh, Cyclops.
Cyclops, yeah. Yeah.
He does have a Cyclops cosplay, but until I make Madeline Pryor,
Oh,
that's when we'll be together because I refuse to be Jean.
okay. Okay. All right. So you've got to many Comic Cons. Have you ever been to Philadelphia?
I have not. No, I have not.
Okay. Because Philadelphia has it. Yeah, look, I don't know. Usually they have a Comic Con here at least once a year.
Mhm.
When I don't know, because it's always changed every time I turn around. But they usually have a Comic Con that comes around here,
Yeah.
and hopefully, um, hopefully it'll happen this year, and hopefully it might come down, and I might step out of the DC world for a little bit and visit you.
I would say, okay, so two things. One, as
Yeah,
far as conventions are concerned, I love a good convention. We have been so lucky the last couple of years to be able to travel some more for conventions. So I got to
yeah,
go to LA Comic Con, I got to go to San Diego Comic Con. We're based in New England, so Philadelphia is not that far. I could probably
yeah,
drive there.
yeah.
No problem. But the biggest cons that we go to are usually New York Comic Con, and then we go to our hometown con of Rhode Island Comic Con. And then
Okay.
this year and last year, we are lucky to be part of an event called the Uncanny Experience, which is an immersive X-Men convention, which is so, so fun.
Okay.
But I don't know how much traveling for cons we're going to do this year. I actually had to have hip surgery at the end of last year. And so, yeah, so I'm still in recovery from that. And, dealing with the financial burden
Yeah.
of having surgery. So there's less travel in the schedule this year, but maybe next year. And then the other thing is DC characters. So
Yeah.
not completely against DC. I just don't have as much of an immersion or a connection to those characters. I would say if I was going to cosplay a DC character,
Yeah.
I'd probably be going more on the villain side of things. I do think Wonder Woman is a great option. I'll say
Yeah.
that as
Okay.
DC heroes, she's top of the list for me.
Yeah. Okay.
But I definitely would be into like Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, like those two. When I was in high school, I was going to be Poison Ivy for Halloween one year, and then I had a rather unfortunate encounter with some mean girls.
Uh,
And yeah,
oh. Mean Girls, the movie came and attacked you.
yeah, my plans changed. It
Oh.
was sort of like, just to give you the brief story, it was like we all had a group of people we were going to be, and I made my Poison Ivy costume, and I was so happy about it. And then, like the night before, it was like, oh, Sarah's actually going to be Poison Ivy now, so like there's not a spot for you in our group anymore. And I was like, oh, want. So I just completely changed my costume and was like a cowgirl or something ridiculous.
A Calvo ridiculous?
No, a cowgirl.
Oh, cowgirl. Oh. Okay. No, I thought you said by that, and I was like, what?
What?
Okay. All right. So Poison Ivy or Harley Quinn?
Yeah. I
Hmm.
like the villains. I'm a fan of a
How about
villain.
Catwoman, though?
Catwoman, yeah, but I mean, she's a good villain, but I like a costume that I can like play with a little bit more. And I think as far as her costume is concerned, it's not as interesting to me to make, It's more of like a
Yeah.
bodysuit that you buy. But there's also a few girls that I know who are really great Catwoman cosplayers. So I try to like think about one, costumes that I think I would have fun making, and two, characters that I feel like I look like or that I would have fun like getting into their heads. Because when I cosplay, I like to not just walk around in a costume, but try to embody that character as well. So,
And there is another one that, in my personal opinion, I
mhm,
mean, with the wig and being that you're a dancer choreographer,
mhm,
even though this character I'm thinking about right now is more of a magician, and I'm talking about
ooh,
Zantana. I can picture you as that.
ooh, I don't know her. I'd have to look her up.
Yeah, she is a superhero
Mhm,
that's a magician. Has about shoulder length. I know there's some episodes where I've seen in the comics where it's a little longer,
mhm.
but she's dressed up as a magician. No cape, but she's like a magician superhero.
Okay, I'll look her
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
I'll
That
Absolutely.
might, yeah, that'll break the bank right there for you. At least her, because I can picture you. The top hat, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
yeah,
I think I think I know someone who has done that cosplay, and now that you're talking about it, I'm like, oh, I think I've seen her before. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you could. I think you could handle that. I think you could slip into that one, at least that one.
Hmm.
So yeah, let me write that down. Santana,
Yeah, send me that and I'll look her up.
Barley, and Poison Ivy.
Yes.
Okay, Wonder Woman. I'll put a question mark next to. Um, Supergirl will be borderline.
Hmm. I mean, I've done some blonde characters. I've done Magic and I've done
Yeah,
Emma Frost. So
yeah.
I got a handful, and I've done Gwen Stacy, but as Spider Gwen. So
Spider. Okay. Here we go. Speaking of that,
yes.
speaking of Spider, what is your opinion of Madam Web?
Ooh, I haven't seen it yet. I
It's supposed
know.
to be coming out. I've seen some of the previews. Again, not being a Marvel person, I mean, Dakota Johnson as a superheroine. Okay, okay. I, if anything, I could picture her maybe as like Firestar.
Ooh. Okay.
Yes, that tells you my age. Okay,
Hey,
when
Firestars, she's up in the business of the X-Men comics right now.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. But I'm dating myself back in the '80s
yeah, when she's in cartoons.
when you were about yay high. Okay, or you not even thought of. No, when she was in the cartoons with Spider Man
Mhm.
and
Spider-Man and his amazing
Iceman,
friends.
Iceman,
Yeah,
Spider Man and Iceman.
yeah.
I kind of liked her past Wonder Woman for a little bit.
Mm.
Um, Now you were telling me the story about with Psylocke
Mhm.
about how she's two different people. Well, there's a DC version of it in a
Oh,
male form.
really?
That's Firestorm.
Oh,
It's actually two people in one.
cool.
It's it's a professor and a student, and they blend together and they create Firestorm.
That's cool.
So yeah. Um, yeah, you gotta watch Titans, I think, or Legends of Tomorrow that happened in
Mm.
when it was on TV. But yeah, Firestorm is actually a combination of two people as well. All right, so let us get into the ex-wife podcast.
Yes. Let's do it. Okay, so the Ex-Wife podcast is the podcast that my husband and I have. And it started out, our slogan when we started was one man's elaborate scheme to get his wife into X-Men comics. And I don't
Yeah.
know if you can see on the walls behind me, but
Mhm.
my craft room is covered in art of X-Women. So it clearly worked. I've been hooked.
Yep.
We started out talking first about House of X and Powers of 10,
Mhm.
going through that 12-issue series. And then after that, I started reading the comics, and we did a whole slew of episodes where I was catching up to current continuity and then also getting some X history. So we have some episodes called Retcon Wranglers, where I'm learning like things that got retconned and important points of history. We have seminal moments where we're learning like those key, what are the key points, the original 5 X-Men, giant size X-Men, the Krakoan age, like things that really Days of Future Past, things like that are really like key points within X-Men continuity. And now where we're at is every week we read the X books that come out that week, and then we discuss them. And I wouldn't always say that what we do is review them. We do talk about like the highs and lows and the issues and kind of get into what we think like the juiciest, meatiest parts of the issues are, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we hope for. But really what we do is like have a community conversation. So our Instagram page, we put up polls every week. So we ask people to vote on what the book of the week was for them and submit their questions. And we also have a Patreon. So we get some questions and insight from our Patreon subscribers as well. And we kind of bring those talking points and those questions that people submit about the books, and we offer our perspective on them. So we're by no means saying that we're experts in X-Men, but we like to have conversations surrounding the characters, their development, what's happening with them, their relationships, make crazy predictions about what's happening, have like, moments of silence for characters that die, or like deep discussions about what's happening with them. And through the podcast, we get to do lots of really fun things. We get to do cosplay things. We get to go to premieres and other events. We get to be part of things and host panels at conventions or be on other people's panels. And it's really been a really amazing experience for the two of us that just started out as something fun that we were going to do during COVID. And now it's like a regular part of our lives.
Yeah. Okay. So one kind of a final question. Where do we see Alicia cosplaying within the... Oh, wait a minute. Before I get to that final question.
Okay.
There is one other Halloween that most brings you out. Now, I don't know. Now, I'm not a big fan of Hocus Pocus. But I started following her on Instagram. And Alicia came out with the closest to being Bette Midler.
Thank you so much.
In reference to Halloween. And I saw this, I was like, and she's in the X-Men? I was like, I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Thank you.
And I was like, even though in the back of my mind I was like, yeah, she still should be DC. That will never get out of my head, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
But how did you decide to go into Hocus Pocus?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so before I was an X-Men nerd, I was just a nerd, and I had lots of things that interest me. Hocus Pocus, when that movie first came out, I was in love with it, and I've watched it every single Halloween since then. It's like a tradition to me. It's not Halloween unless Hocus Pocus is played at least once, if not multiple times. So I started just 1 year for fun, I was like, you know what I want to do? I want to be Winifred Sanderson for Halloween. So I started,
Okay.
I made a costume.
Mhm.
And then over the course of a few years, I started to add to and improve this costume. And what I would
Mhm.
do is I would dress up as Winifred and pass out candy to the kids trick or
Okay.
treating.
Yeah.
And then a couple years into doing that, a friend of mine was getting married on Halloween, and she was like, "Can you come? Can you be Winifred? And can you sing I Put a Spell on You at my wedding reception?"
Oh boy.
I was like, "Yes, of course I can." So
Yep.
I got a couple other friends and who were actually members of my dance company,
Uh,
and we put together the whole thing. We all had our costumes. We did a little dance number. We had a cauldron in the middle, and we did a
uh,
little scene before. Like
mm,
I like stormed into the wedding reception and like called my sisters, and like they came
uh,
in and we did our whole thing
uh,
and sang the song, and then we gathered ourselves up and left. And so for
yeah.
that I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this at somebody's wedding, I need to like up my game, I need to up my cosplay.
Yeah.
So I basically didn't completely throw away my first version, but threw away most of it and
Mhm.
restarted and made another version.
Okay.
And then through some cosplay connections that I have, other people that I'm friends with in the cosplay community, I got invited to go to the premiere of Hocus Pocus 2 in New York City. So the
Oh.
red carpet premiere. So I got to go and I got to attend the premiere as my Winifred cosplay, along with a bunch of other amazing Sanderson sister Billy
Uh-huh.
cosplayers,
Yeah.
and attend the event.
Yeah.
And my husband is a videographer and a photographer. So I always am like, hey, you want to take some pictures of me in my new costume? Um, so yeah, so we did that, and I still do it every single year.
Yeah.
We just recently bought a house, and so my goal always was to have the kids like remember and know. And right before we moved out of our apartment, that Halloween before, these kids came running up and they were like, "It's the Hocus Pocus house. We're so excited." And I was like,
Aw.
"Oh, you guys remember? That's amazing." So then
Mhm.
this year was our first Halloween in our new home, and
Mhm.
I went all out. We put
Um,
like a big setup in the front yard.
mhm.
Justin dresses up as Billy, and we do like the Stitches makeup on his face, and
Yeah.
has this tattered costume, and we kind of like create our little tableau in the front yard as the
Mm.
kids come over. And in that
Uh-huh.
moment too, I'm fully in character. I am not Alicia passing out candy. I am Winifred.
Yeah.
You know, I do the whole thing.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
It's really fun.
Um, all right. I'm gonna give you a tidbit that you'll
Okay.
remember for the rest of your life.
Okay.
Okay. Sarah Jessica Parker and I. Okay. I'll make it a trivia question first.
Okay.
Do you know when Sarah Jessica Parker's birthday is?
I do not.
Okay. Answer is March 25th.
It's coming up.
Yeah. Well, I kind of share my birthday with her
That's awesome.
and Sir Elton John.
Yeah.
So I got
What a great
the whole.
birthday.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's why I'm going to Atlantic City.
Nice.
But yeah, so I had to throw that tidbit in there, being with Hocus Pocus and all that.
Yeah.
Um, so now the final question
Mm-hmm.
comes down to what's next?
Ooh, okay. What's next? Well, we're going to be continuing on with the podcast. So
Okay.
that's always happening.
Okay.
Um I have plans this year. So this year, as I mentioned before, I'm
Mhm.
working a little bit differently with my nerd life budget than I was the year
Right.
prior.
Right.
So I'm challenging myself this year to create costumes out of things I already have and see what I've got. So back
Mm.
here, nope, whoop,
Mm.
this side,
Yep.
this side.
Yeah.
I have all these drawers that are
Yeah.
filled with fabric. So
Okay.
basically, I have to use the fabric I have
Yep.
and see what I can make. But plans that I have are
Mm.
um, Kitty Pryde from Excalibur. I would
Mhm.
like to make Rasputin, who is the silver person I was talking about, the silver
Right.
character.
Mhm.
I would like to up the ante on my Captain Carter a little bit.
Okay.
I want to do some non-Marvel character, so TBD on what that is, but you've given me some good options.
Okay.
So maybe those will be on the list.
Okay.
But as far as what's next for me, I mean, I'm going to keep doing cosplay. I'm going to keep pushing forward in my recovery and hopefully get back to dancing in the next couple of months.
Okay.
We'll be definitely at the Uncanny Experience, which is in September.
Okay.
And we'll definitely be at New York Comic Con, and we'll definitely be at Rhode Island Comic Con. And
Yep.
so, planning for those things, and
Mhm.
just keeping up with connecting with people on social media. I really love to talk to people about nerdy things. So,
Mhm.
hanging out and chatting with people on Instagram is a fun thing for me to do, and continuing what we do with the podcast is great too. So
Okay.
pretty much keeping on doing the same.
Oh, okay. All right. So, I'm trying to think. I thought of one more question.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There is one post that you had,
Mm-hmm.
and it questioned me because I thought it may have been Mortal Kombat. It was the blue one.
Yes.
Is
So
that Kitana or is that Melina?
So it's neither of them. So
Oh,
the character that I am right now, Kitty Pryde, she is
yeah.
like one of the most, like, of all the X-Men, she probably has the most number of costumes, or one of the most versions of costumes. So
Okay.
I have this like secret goal that I would like to create all of her looks, or as many of her looks as possible. And so it's not so much of a secret goal, it's pretty
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
But she just recently, so she was, before that look, she was a pirate, and she had like a
Okay.
red jacket with a white shirt. So I have that look as well.
Yeah.
And then some devastating things have happened to the X-Men in the last few months in comics.
Mhm.
And because of those things, she tapped into her ninja training roots and decided to become a ninja assassin. And
Okay.
so that is the costume that I was in that you're referring to. It's
Okay.
cat costume. However, I did wear it at New York Comic Con, and there were a lot of Mortal Kombat cosplayers, and people were like, "Look, it's a blue ninja." So
Yeah.
it definitely has ninja vibes to it. I mean,
Okay.
it is a
Oh,
ninja.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because someone had asked me about it, and I was like, I'm not into Mortal Kombat. I mean, even in the movie, I didn't even watch it.
Yeah.
X-Men. I don't remember if I watched the X-Men movie or. Well, yeah, yes, I will say I did because of Famke Jensen playing Jean Grey. So yes,
Mhm.
because Famke Jensen was hot back then. Uh, but again, that tells you my age. All right. So how how can we how can my viewers and listeners tap into the Ex-Wife podcast?
Yeah, of course. So you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Ex-Wife Podcast. It's THEXWIFE as in X-Men, not former wife. And you can also, we have the xwifepodcast.com. And then if you would like to listen to the podcast, you can find it on every podcast streaming platform. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, a whole bunch of them. So if you just search the Ex-Wife Podcast, you can find us and subscribe, and we put an episode out every single week.
All right. As we're closing, I'm going to give you a nice suggestion.
Okay.
I think this would be an awesome idea. I actually did this for this podcast. There's a website called Spreadshirt.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, it's, oh God, it's been so long since I've been on it too. But what it is I took the label that my little icon that you see on Instagram.
Yep.
My little, with the podcast thing and my name
Yep. Yeah,
underneath.
like your little logo.
Yeah, my logo there. And I put that, it's on shirts, mugs, mouse pads, so on.
Yes.
And so it's shop.spreadshirt.com/life-with-joey-calvo. That might be a good idea for you to raise extra money as well, having a merchandise website.
Yes, so we do actually have a T Public page, which is very similar. It's like TEE Public, as in like a T-shirt.
Okay.
So if you go on T Public and you search the Ex-Wife Podcast, we have some like basic merch that has just our logo on it, and then we also have shirts and things. So we have designs that are kind of based off of the characters. So they're not like pictures of the characters themselves because those are copyright and we can't sell those. But what we do is like, we'll throw in a saying that we have a character say, or there's a lot of times actually in recent X-Men comics where a character will make a joke and say like, put that on a t-shirt, and I'll be like, challenge accepted. So I like make a design around that and put it on a t-shirt. So we do have a T Public page, and people do support us there, and they do support us on Patreon. So we're very lucky in that aspect.
Yeah. Well, I had no luck with Patreon, so we tried that. And I had one thing with that Spreadshirt one. T Public, maybe I'll look into that.
Yeah, T Public is really great.
Yeah. All right. Alicia, thank you so much for your time. We got at least 30 minutes in. Believe it or not, we're at 41. So, and unfortunately, we had one live viewer during the time. Unfortunately, but definitely, if you ever want to come back on the podcast again, give me an idea past March 31st, because the way I've been feeling right now, it's almost like these podcasts are almost coming to an end on me. And I've been doing this since 2019.
Oh, amazing!
So it's kind of I can't say a rally to save the podcast. It's a rally to save me from canceling the podcast. So
I'll make sure I tell people all about it.
Yeah, but thank you so much for your time, and the door's always open for you to come back on. Now, as we're getting off, now somebody decides to come on.
Well, they can rewatch the whole thing.
Of course. And I made sure. And I made sure for hashtags to put hashtag X-Men, hashtag podcast, hashtag cosplay. I forgot what else. It's in the description though, but it's on there. But Alicia, thank you so much again. I enjoyed this chat. It was interesting to learn a little bit more about X-Men, and even though I am still a DC fan and still think she's Wonder Woman, okay, which will never get out of my head. We'll never, and don't tell your husband that, because I don't want him to come all the way down to Philly and come get me for saying it.
No, he won't.
Okay. But thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching the Life of Joey Calvo podcast. God bless you.
Thank you.
One moment here. There we go.